I think she's saying. Are we live?
We are recording.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. We need confirmation we are legally posted under chapter 19. Do I have that?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me on Zoom? We good, Julie?
She's muted.
Yes,
Yes, I can hear you, Chuck.
Okay, good. Next thing is approval of the minutes from February 2nd. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
second,
Are there any changes, amendments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed, no opposition, the minutes are approved as submitted. Public comment on agenda items. There's nobody in the room. Is there somebody on Zoom? I don't hear any. We will move on. Announcements. That is the director of the department, Chad. What do we got?
Good morning, everybody. More snow coming.
I guess so.
I didn't follow the last round, thinking it's gonna melt in my driveway. So a few things. I was hoping I would have our annual report, the 2022 annual report for the department for you guys today. We're in the editing phase of it. It should be done by middle of next week, so I'll get you guys all a copy of that and have that completed. Yep, and that highlights the work from 2022 for the department. And we'll send that out to the whole county board and our state organizations, highlighting all the work that we do. I want to make you all aware that through the Winnebago Waterways program, there was a push to try and support getting a couple more additional DNR staff on the Winnebago system. They had some positions that were focused on the Winnebago system. One was architectural, it was the Winnebago systems biologist, and then I think it was Mark Sasson with their water team. So that is going to be advancing through this next state budget. It was supported by the governor in the biennial budget, but how that works is everything goes back to square one, and then go through the legislative process approving that. Winnebago Waterways will be lobbying to try to get those positions approved. It's a huge system, and they just don't have enough staff to cover the size of that. So we'll see where that goes. Update on the climate smart commodity grants. This will be coming through committee. I met with 7 other counties on this grant, and it is going to be advancing. So what that means for our department is it's going to be about $750,000 grant that we'll be bringing in our department. We're going to have a 3-year position. It's written in there as an agronomist, but I think I'm going to take more than angle of a soil health specialist, which I'll think about. All expenses are included, the truck, computer, cost sharing is involved with that. We got 2,000 acres that we can sign up for cover crops and no-till. And then the angle of it, and I know I've mentioned this before, but just to refresh your memories, the angle is going to be the carbon market. So we will be running a model called Comet to come up with what the carbon savings are, and try and get these farmers set up for the processors of the general mills of the world to work with them as a sustainable farm. So still a lot to be talked about what's going to happen. It's going to have to run through committee. I'm going to have to do a budget amendment to bring the money in, and I'm going to have to get the staff brought in as well. So there's going to be a few steps that will have to go through committee, P&L, and county board.
How long will that take?
I'm anticipating once we get forward with it, I would say 2 months, maybe 3, just guessing. So I'd be looking to start advertising for the position probably late summer. See, maybe before. The challenge is, it's exciting. The challenge is going to be, we have 7 other counties, 8 including us, that's going to be filling positions. So we're looking for 8 agronomists, soil health positions to get at the same time. the world we're in is going to be a little bit challenging. But it is exciting. So we'll see where it goes, but it is going to be advancing.
Chad,
Bruce?
on the carbon credit side, can you speak to that just a little bit more? Because I remember when I gave you some information from Indigo, that one private firm that was out there.
Yeah, I think this is more, there isn't a payment that we're giving for the carbon, it's more of an awareness and education and reporting on our end. So if we sign up 2,000 acres, what does that mean for carbon savings? Getting the producers kind of familiar with that and just looking at it a little bit differently. So there isn't any money tied to carbon, it's more of educational from my understanding with that.
And is this, are you talking specifically what you had gave us a proposal one time for spirit funds for water quality? Is that what you're talking about?
This is a completely different thing right now. So this would be,
okay.
Yeah, it's a grant with all the money that came through with the federal government. With Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance, they got a sub-award with Edge Dairy Cooperative for this grant. It's approximately $7 million. And we're one of the counties that will be working with Fox Wolf, and it's through that Edge Dairy Cooperative. So a separate grant, different thing.
And how do you sign up for that? Is that open now, or did you say it in a couple months?
Will be once we have to get the agreement with Fox Wolf signed, so that needs to get signed. It's a 5-year grant. We have 3 years for the position. It's already started right now, so we're a little behind, but we still have time to do that. So once we get the grant agreement signed, then we can start signing agreements. So that would be, I'm hoping to get some contracts signed for fall cover crops is what I'm hoping. If everything aligns here, that's kind of the game plan, and there'd be for, again, 3 years of payments with that.
Well, again, I'm putting cover crops down. I would be interested in it, so just let you know that.
Okay, it's actually, sorry, it's 2 years with the payments is how that's set up for the program.
Okay.
3 years for the position. And then we kind of, any more questions, I guess, in the climate smart before I move on with that? Okay, so that's a good segue. Bruce, you had mentioned the ARPA money, the spirit funds. That is advancing today at the ARPA Commission. And my understanding, and I don't know for sure, Chuck may know more about this, but if it advances today, it would move on a county board is what I was told in March for a $3 million ask for the department. So we are meeting, Chuck and I are meeting with the administrative team before the ARPA meeting today, and then it's on the agenda for approval this afternoon. We'll see what happens with those ones. That's the other big thing going on. Crossing our fingers.
Can I ask a question on the spirit funds?
Sure.
Is it a matter of just the semantics of it, or is this going to actually, it should actually happen, correct?
It's looking like the support is there, but it still needs to advance through county board. I did do a presentation at their February meeting, at their special orders meeting, and just from what I heard, based on questions, it seems like there's quite a bit of support with the county board, but it still needs to gain approval from the board before it advances. But I'm optimistic we're going to get there.
Thank you.
It's too, right?
Very much. Very much.
For the members that aren't on the county board, Chad did an excellent presentation, and the question that was kind of most asked is 3 million enough? And so he did over and above a good presentation, and my take on it is you won over probably 36 members of the county board, so that's tribute to the job you did.
Thank you very much. Now, I was very happy with the responses and the questions. I think the one question from Paul Eisen where there was a little bit of opposition was the cost share rate out of everybody that asked questions. That was kind of the one thing that came up, but overall it was very positive.
Is the truck that you're requesting in this grant, or is that something that went through the budget
That's a
back in November?
good question, Kay. So we have 2 trucks going on right now. So we have one that was approved in the budget for this year, which I can't even find a truck yet, so I'm working to get that one replaced. It's a over 20-year-old truck we need to get replaced. The world we're in is just hard to get a truck secured right now, but I'm actually trying to get that done. Part of this grant is an additional truck for that position. It would be, there's 25,000 in the grant to lease the vehicle for 3 years. So we would lease that vehicle for 3 years.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Chad.
Sorry, I have a couple more things.
All right.
An update on the Lightfoot, Terry Lightfoot and Lynn Lightfoot. They had that manure pit that was, they filled it in without a permit. So they just pushed in the soils. It's full of manure. We need to abandon it properly. We're trying to work with them. They did apply for EQIP funds through NRCS. They were awarded about $6,300 to do that. So we are currently working with them to, they have to do it either way. So they either need to sign on the dotted line that they're going to take those funds by the end of the month, or we're going to have to take the enforcement route. So we're hoping they take those funds, we can keep working with them to get this done, get it abandoned properly, and walk away. So that's the goal. If they don't sign by the end of the month, then we're going to have to send a letter to that line. And we'll be with them.
What needs to be done beyond what they've already done?
So they just pushed it
They
inside.
go back over there?
Yep, so we did some testing, so you go through a little bit of soil and it's all manure. So we need to take out soil that's now contaminated, which wasn't before, so it's more material they're gonna have to deal with. All the manure has to be removed and then we excavate it until we don't see any manure infiltrating into the soil. And then once it's deemed clean, then we can fill it back in, cap it off for a foot, and it's abandoned. And if there's a transfer system, we have to disable the transfer system.
Where do you go with that manure? Just spread it?
It needs to be spread according to the nutrient management plans. We work with our agronomist. She wants it. Off the field. Take it.
All we're having is the soil.
It will be a little bit. So it shouldn't be any too concerning, but you want to get it away from that aquifers potential. So we'll see where that goes.
How did you find out about this, and should there be some penalties and pain? Obviously, they thought they could just bury it and nobody knows the difference, and
Yes, so how we found it, we were doing barnyard inventory assessments with area photos. So we're trying to look at runoff, trying to find sites that are washing and that water is getting in barnyard inventory. We stumbled on it on an area photo. You could see the years the pit was slowly getting filled in and it told the story, told itself. So that's how we found it. As far as penalties, yes, we can cite them. But right now, because they are working with us, we are going down that road. If they push back, then my recommendation for sure. But right now, we're working with us. We're just trying to get this done.
What's on there?
Point. So I will keep you all posted. I'll have an update at the April meeting for that.
Andy, can you move that speaker closer to Chad once?
Sure. I'll bring it as far as my cords will go. Well, that's just about the center of the room, Bruce, so let's try that.
Okay, thank you.
Couple more things. Is that better, Bruce?
Yeah, I think so right now.
Right. So we have an accepted offer for our administrative assistant. Mary's retiring on March 29th. And we hired Jody Bizio, I think is how you pronounce her last name. She's with Extension. She's moving next door to our department, and she worked with the egg agent in the past, and I think she's going to be an awesome addition to our department. So I think she's going to have a lot of capacity to do additional things, and I'm happy. So that's a big role for what I do, to have that support and to have that transition where she's coming in the next day is huge for our department. So she'll be starting on the 30th, the day after Mary retires. And then the last thing I just want to pass around here, our annual conference was last week. for our state organization. And I just want to explain the process now for advancing policy. So in the past, at our annual meeting, resolutions would come forward to the whole state association. We would review those resolutions with our committee and get your opinion on it, whether you wanted to advance it or not. The problem with that, there wasn't a lot of transparency. You'd have to wait a whole year to get policy passed. So that's why they came up with this new process. So what happens now is if, for example, if the committee wants to take a resolution up through a state organization, we would go through committee, we would advance it to our area association. And there's a form that's filled out with our Wisconsin Land and Water group to do that. So we'll go through our Lake Winnebago Land and Water Conservation Association first, then it would advance to the state. And then they have subcommittees with our state organizations. So it would be assigned to one of those committees. It could be the technical committee, it could be the legislative committee. Then it would go through committee, you all can provide input at that point too. Anybody can attend those meetings. And then from there, it advances back to the president and the executive director of our state association to review, and then advances from there. So there's not a time frame. It can happen any time of year. Very transparent. You can provide a lot more input. It just, in my opinion, makes a lot more sense. So these bylaws, they were passed at our state association, so I think it's a huge improvement for those types of things. This kind of answers any of the questions you have with it. If you have any further questions, just let me know. And I can email this to Julie and Bruce. I'll email you this copy so you have it for the new
Okay.
policy. That is all I have for announcements.
Thank you, Chad. I was actually going to report on the ARPA issue, as Chad indicated, we meet today at 1. So hopefully we can bring this forward. I don't see any concerns at all at this point. We bring it forward to the full county board, our next county board. I think we have time. So we should be good to go on that. Any questions of myself, ARPA, anything else?
Can you, I don't know when's the time, can you explain just a little bit Winnebago waterways and the Fox Wolf Alliance, and somewhere out there is the ITMEC committee that I still don't, I'm on it, I still don't understand it, and
Do we want to wait for that? to come
we
up on the
certainly
agenda?
can.
Okay.
Certainly, I see it is part of it on the agenda.
Okay, if there's no questions of myself, we'll move into the business side of the agenda. Item number A, review of the Winnebago Waterways Program Agreement with Calumet County, Fond du Lac County, Winnebago, and the new one would be Washera.
I move the resolution for the motion to pass it.
So I have a motion.
Can I just step in? We're not looking for any approval on this. It's discussion item.
So, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, that's correct. Just review this. This goes to the executive committee, which I'm a member of. And county exec is chairman of it now, and of course, Tommy, then the county board chairman is on the committee also, representing Winnebago County. So if you have any concerns, now would be a good time to voice those concerns.
So just a little background. So the Winnebago Waterways Program started in 2017. We entered into a 4-year agreement with them back in 17 or 18. So that is the counties that are participating in the Winnebago Waterways Program contribute $20,000 each. That was a total of $60,000, but now with Sheriff counties on board, that would be $80,000 to this program. And to answer your question, Doug, the Winnebago Waterways Program is one of many programs of Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance. This was created because of, it was an intergovernmental agreement that was done with the counties, which again gives the funds to this program, and they were able to hire a position, which is Corinne During, and it has just grown since then. They've leveraged a lot of money with the seed money that the counties have given them. And that program, we got the lake management plan approved, and there's a lot of things advanced. We're in the implementation stage of the Winnebago Waterways program. So this would be another agreement for 4 years, starting in 2024 through 2027, continuing to give that money to the Winnebago Waterways program.
Where is, Bashir County then, as of this time, March of 2023?
They did an amendment to the agreement, so they started this year, they're part of the group now, and then they would look to sign on this 4-year agreement to be part of that cooperation.
So they're more of an addendum to this current agreement,
The current
the
agreement.
balance of this year. Okay.
Yes,
And this basically covers one employee.
there's a couple employees with Foxwell, but that's where they leverage some of that money with grants. So they have a shoreline restoration, shoreline habitat person that's really focused on buffers on the system. And Corinne, I think those are the two right now, if I remember correctly, Nicole.
Fox Wolf is basically a nonprofit organization, and there's been many prior to them that did not progress. If, you know, the last the big one from UW Washington, Professor Heffernan. So this group is doing a very good, adequate job of fulfilling. Now, see, what we have in the contract, the exec committee oversees their contract with the counties. So far they're doing an excellent job.
And I'm assuming that they work hand in hand with you and your staff. Because
Yes,
Conservation.
I'm on the steering team for the program, so I'm part of that. So we advanced our policy to the executive committee, who's meeting on March 29th to approve this. So yes, everything gets funneled through the exec committee, but I'm part of the steering team with the other counties, DNR, and that's where.
Your steering team is actually part of the nonprofit. Is that how that's set up? Could you coordinate, do you work with them?
We work with them as
Or
part
do
of
you give
the-
them some direction? a little bit?
Or we give direction, yeah, okay, there's a lot of direction going on with that. And then as far as this agreement, because it advances through the executive committee and it's approved in our annual budget, and there is an out here, if the county wanted out, it doesn't need to advance any further than our executive committee. We can get approved through the executive committee, and what I'm being told is then our county exec can sign on behalf of the counties. Sign up for the next 4 years, because I have $20,000 in my budget every year for this program, and then the county board. The budget cycle. The Foxwell has been great. Chuck can allude to this as well, but there was a lot of thought that went into this as far as having them be the entity. And I don't think we could have picked a better one to advance what's going on. We got that lake management plan approved, which is a huge undertaking, and the money that's coming in, the communication regionally, it's just awesome for the system.
And then Winnebago Waterways is a whole different.
As far as Fox Wolf different, or
Right, I mean, is Winnebago Waterways part of Fox Wolf?
I
Yes.
believe so,
Okay.
yeah. It's just, it's another acronym.
Okay,
for the same
okay,
program.
right, so you have Fox Wolf up here, you have the Winnebago Waterways program, they have AIS, they have the stormwater with use. They do a number of different things. They have lower Fox Wolf stuff going on.
Okay,
There's stuff in the upper Fox Wolf with soil health initiatives that are happening, so they're heavily involved and a very close partner with all the counties. And so, yeah, I would love to see another 4 years of this, and we're going, momentum's just building with this. And
okay, and just got done with a conservation congress meeting last night. With all the stuff we're trying to do, is there any input whatsoever into these wake boats that have become popular, that are probably the worst thing to ever happen to any lake or river system?
I would agree with that, especially on the smaller lakes. I've seen it's just awful, the damage that they're doing. I have not heard anything other than the rivers. I've heard some complaints about it. On the big lakes, I haven't heard any complaints. But if there's something we want to advance, it would be, we could talk through this program to see if there was something we want to advance or support. But it's hard on bigger lakes.
Didn't we have that issue a while back up by Fremont up there? There was an ordinance passed, and it was up to the sheriff
Well, they could pass a no wake in that area, but what's happening now, they tell me, is it doesn't even have to be wake boats, because there are companies out there that are coming up with additions that you can put on any boat that will create a wake. So any boat can now become a wake boat. If anybody's unfamiliar, they tell me that they're taking surfboards and they are surfing in the wake created by this boat.
And
So,
it's not a 1 foot wake. I own my kayak. They're throwing a 4 foot wave at you.
yeah, they're literally creating a tsunami that is just beating the bejesus out of every shore that we've been trying to protect. They create waves bigger than Oregon on a 30-mile-an-hour wind, and they're just gaining in popularity. And you know, the DNR is trying to figure out a way to control it. I just, if it ever comes up in any of the discussions, it's, you want to destroy 30 years of trying to save the environment,
Right.
that'll do it.
One thing, if you're out in the middle of the lake, I think you're okay, but once you start getting close to that shoreline, they can tear up that shoreline.
Bill, thanks for, geez, I didn't know that about it, but I don't do nothing with boats much, so. What's that attached to the motor itself?
Typically, they have a big ballast that they can fill with water, so that when they go through, they are just plowing and putting a 4, 5, 6 foot weight
I
behind
drag it
it.
behind the boat then. And it's
Yeah.
pulling.
Weights that
Yeah.
go down. So
Weights the boat down, so all you're doing is just plowing, so the guy behind you can get on his surfboard, and you don't have to go to Florida anymore to surf. You can surf on Lake Poygan.
And then they have the big speakers and the music blaring.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, my neighbor has one. They
Really?
fill the hull with tons of water. And the hull it's probably 10 feet. And that sinks the boat. So it's just like you described, it just plows this enormous wake. And I don't know how people afford this thing.
Well, they're 100,000 plus. for the
Yeah.
boats.
And the other aspect is there's really, most of them that I've at least heard, there's no easy, clear way of draining the ballast.
That's a good
out.
point.
So now you are
Right.
taking the water from
Complete
Lake
AIS.
Winnebago to Lake Pelican or whatever,
Yeah.
so it just,
What's the direction of this conservation Congress for it?
they absolutely wanna ban them
Ban 'em,
completely if there's any way of doing it.
So
I
that
mean,
would
that's-
require a state.
Yeah, yeah, and the state doesn't do stuff real quick all the time.
So you're hoping, conservation committees and our agency can kind of promote that ban process.
Yep.
So with that water being taken up by this boat that apparently is absolutely homeless, and it makes you wonder, is the lake deep enough
No,
to handle it? But does that then going from lake to lake take invasive species?
Yes.
Yep.
that's-
100%.
yeah.
Everything about them is bad, 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 except for the guy that's on the surf.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
How do
He's
they
having a
get
great
rid of
time.
these things? The weight must be tremendous.
Oh, I,
I'm sure they're triaxles sometimes.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh, they can go to the dells, come on.
And, I mean, Lake Poygan is 5 to 9 feet deep. If you're plowing 4 or 5 feet under, you talk about stirring up the phosphorus on the bottom. We can have green algae thicker than we've ever had with just a couple of bolts.
Oh, yeah. I just got an email this week about the spiny water flea, I think it's called, the AIS critter they found in Winnebago. So it's tiny, so how are you gonna see that?
Yep.
In that water, so yeah, the AIS part of it is huge.
Thank you, Doug, for bringing that up.
Yeah, yeah. I assume then maybe our association is going
it's one of those things you could advance through your area association. Um, It's a delicate thing, you know, smaller lake, big lakes, I think it needs to be the size of the lake that they're allowed. But it needs to be the state and we can support not wanting those on lakes, probably reasons we just discussed, but we haven't seen anything advance.
Well, we'll need to get it down to section of the statute we're talking about. Probably falls under DNR administrative rule.
Yes,
Right.
and I don't know if there's a lake association that they can individually, I think they'd be able to maybe. do
So
some-
I just,
Yeah.
any opportunity you get, I think it's consensus here is that it's defeating everything you're
Probably
trying
not a
to
good
do.
idea.
So,
I couldn't agree more.
Back to agenda item A, if there's no further questions, any further comments in regard to the Winnebago Waterways Program? Hearing none, we're all good with it?
Yep.
No concerns, okay. We'll move on to Julie, do you have any concerns?
No,
Okay.
I would have voiced my concerns had I had them.
We'll move on to business item B, review the MS4 municipal stormwater system annual permit. You should have a copy of that also, and it's this document.
Need to look back in a second, but there it is, okay.
Permits up for discussion, Andy.
Okay, thank you. Pardon me, but I had to just, the discussion of the wakeboards. This is a photo. I recently attended the Fox Wolf Watershed Conference, which you guys were just talking about. They put on a wonderful conference. I attended as part of my MS4 duties. And it is kind of ironic that they were handing this out as part of their little packet, but that is what one of those boats look like. So I'll pass
Handing it
that
out as
around.
part of their packet supporting.
Hey, Andy, can you
Yes.
put it in front of the camera when it gets back around to you?
Sure, sure. Well, as in many of you who've attended these conferences, you get a little welcome packet, and that's
Yeah.
probably from the Chamber of Commerce promoting the Oshkosh area. It wasn't necessarily Fox Wolf saying, hey, go buy a wakeboard, but
Yeah.
it was a little bit ironic that it went out there. So as that's going around, I'll just do a brief introduction. In your packet, my purpose today is to go over the annual report, draft annual report that I've been working on to submit to the DNR as part of our permit requirements. So what I like to do, and I'll try to not take up too much of your time, but give you a bit of a summary here on the report and give you an opportunity to ask any questions regarding the report. As I have mentioned in prior meetings with you about the MS4, we have 8 topic areas that we are required to keep track of and report to the DNR on an annual basis. The 8 areas are public education and outreach, public involvement and participation, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site pollutant control, post-construction stormwater management, pollution prevention, stormwater quality management, and the storm sewer system map. So that is a lot. And it takes a team of us to gather that information every year. I work with the highway department, who is the actual permit holder. We provide the services to manage it, the permit at a cost to the highway department, but at quite a savings as opposed to hiring a outside engineering firm, which Mr. Chairman has been in discussion with in the town of Inland. So I think we do a good job for them. We work with the planning and zoning department. We work with the parks department, and we work with the facilities department. We've got a great team. They coordinate, they give me all of this information that I have to assemble and put into this report. Okay. And just before I'll open it up for questions, just to give you an idea, this report is really a small piece of it. The bulk of the report is actually in all of the attachments associated with it. So I have the illicit discharge survey that I conduct in the fall. Facilities has all of their stormwater inspection reports in the fall. We also were audited this fall by the DNR. So, and if you recall, I did present what their findings were. So I'll be attaching that information. And I simply couldn't include in a packet all of the supporting documents because I would be killing a lot of trees to do that. If you want to see any of those supporting documents, I can produce that for you as well. Before I go in, and I'm not going to go through line by line here, I'm just going to hit some of the high points. Does anybody have any questions before I jump in?
Observation map might indicate how much area we covered. The permit itself is a 5-year permit.
Yes,
So this is a supplement each year to support that permit.
correct.
And then, of course, the mileage recovery, and basically it's municipal, so it's just roads that the county owns, right?
Correct, yes.
With the exception of the highway department.
Yes, correct. Good question, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, we have about a little over 34 miles of county roadway that are constituted as in the MS4 permit area. However, we do have municipal facilities that we also have to manage and address. And that's where the highway department, they have part of their requirement is in the pollution prevention, where they have an actual, it's called a SWIP. We have tons of acronyms. It's a stormwater management plan for that facility. And that's another attachment that supports this document. And it is a 5-year term. Our permit is expiring in 2024. They'll be issuing new permits. And with each new permit comes new requirements. But
Do you want to focus on that?
I do not,
Okay.
I would, that would be another meeting.
Yeah.
I would assume. I would just like to kind of focus on this, if that is okay. Otherwise, I can't,
That's fine.
I don't have as much information.
Yeah.
Any upfront questions? Otherwise, I'll jump into a few of the highlights. So the first couple pages are, it's purely just contact information. You start to get into the actual topic areas where you go into public education and outreach. And that's where we work closely with NUSC, which is the Northeast Wisconsin Stormwater Consortium. They do a wonderful job of going out into schools, educating kids, putting on activities. We, as the Land and Water Conservation Department, also do many educational activities that discuss stormwater. So we take credit for those activities as well. So that's the education component. Me speaking with you is also another educational and kind of working with the citizens and political bodies, to inform and educate. In section 3, illicit discharge and detection and elimination, that's where we actually go out and we survey outfalls within our permit area. And I actually found an error, so I'm glad this was draft. I have to correct it. Where it says, as far as under section 3, item D for illicit discharge complaints, there's a 1. It's actually a 0. That 1 was carried over from last year's report. So that's, all of those 1s will be changed to 0. We didn't have any complaints or issues in the survey.
For the benefit of the committee, could you define an illicit discharge? Basically, somebody's discharging something into a county ditch.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that could be from
It could,
sewage issues.
it could be sewage, it could be, I mean, the whole thing about the MS4 is that you're looking at urbanized areas. So what we're really looking at are industry, okay? We're really looking for that garage that's dumping their oil, that's got some used material that they're trying to get rid of. And that's what we're looking for. It's not so much the person that's got a sump pump or a washing machine or something. I mean, those can be things, but we're really looking at the urban area and looking at those maintenance garages, any heavy industry, anything that's gonna try and do bad stuff.
We rely on the highway department generally to identify that. And then our department does the enforcement, review, follow up.
And yes, and if you recall, we went through in our first audit in 2017, we needed to have an ordinance adopted, which is the IDD, the illicit discharge and detection ordinance, which we now have. So we have that capability to, enforce action if we find something. I'm thankful that we have not had that happen. Yeah, so.
I just mentioned that so the committee had the general idea of how the process.
Right, exactly. Any other questions or comments?
Comment, and that is it with the avenues that are taken to accomplish the goals that are set. It takes time, doesn't it?
Time, personnel, money. We're actually going to get into that with the next agenda item, and you might want to tie them together.
Yeah.
The grant is to purchase new software to do the analysis for this continuing program.
And when I say time, just the coordination between the various departments to get it to the next level, to get it to, and it appears that there are at least 5 levels, if not more. Y'all, I'm learning about government and why does it take so long?
Well, I just as a little note on that, that is one of the most important changes that we made based on our first audit in 2017 was the formation of this team that includes all of those departments, and it has been a success. We would not be able to put together as good of a report if we weren't getting the cooperation from all of these other departments. I mean, most of you who have been involved on committees or groups or whatever understand well that all it takes is one person that doesn't want to play well, and the whole thing can really be bogged down. But everybody, facilities, parks, planning and zoning, everybody comes to the table. And, it's not easy because it takes time. It's more requirements on staff. I try to do as much as I can for the highway department because I know those guys are busy. And to continue to ask them, oh yeah, by the way, I need this, but they've been super. So 100%, it is a lot of coordination, and the group that we have is really, I'm super happy with.
Well done.
Well, thank you. Anything else on IDDB? Okay, then we go into the section 4, which gets into construction site, and section 5 are kind of rolled in together. That's where we work closely with planning and zoning. And we have a representative on our team. He's the erosion control site inspector. He coordinates all of the inspection. He's out in the field checking sites. We also have a contractor, R.A. Smith, that does inspections on private stormwater practices. And he provides input to us, which we include in the report. Part of our audit, we had some inconsistencies in our erosion control ordinance that were identified by the DNR, some language inconsistencies. So part of our compliance efforts are to get that ordinance revised so that it meets the DNR requirements. We currently have some language in there, and I don't want to get into the weeds unless you want me to, but we had some language in there regarding impervious surface that needs to be removed from that ordinance. So we're basically addressing any kind of land disturbance over an acre is the criteria that the DNR wants to see. So we're going to take out that impervious surface language and basically capture more area. Is that about right, Chad? Okay. 6, and I'm not going to get into the inspection numbers. They're really just that numbers. Pollution prevention is where we're actually talking about our facilities, such as the highway shop, where they're, doing their annual housekeeping, not annual, daily housekeeping, making sure the yard is well kept. I can tell you from the audit where the DNR inspected the highway shop, he was super impressed with everything he saw, the way that they were working and keeping everything neat. And, everything was where it was supposed to be. So those guys are doing a good job down there. As a little bit of interest, there is a table showing the amount of salt and brine that is distributed on our roads. And that is, I don't think there's page numbers on this. It's under winter road management.
Hey, Andy, on that topic, do they plan to have salt reduction strategy training for the highway department?
They do. The staff has been participating in that. They've taken, I know, a number of training sessions, and they're actively involved in reducing salt use. And again, these numbers are just for the MS4 roads. We're not talking about all county highways, all right?
I think that has been, it's becoming more of a public concern.
Yep.
That's very good, we're addressing that. Are you aware of any initiative? Now they're using brine.
Right.
In your opinion, is that better than actual salt from a conservation point of view?
Pardon me. From my understanding, because I did attend a training session a few years ago, It is, it's more effective. It reduces the amount of material that you need. So apparently it works.
Because I believe it's, 25% solution or somewhere in there.
I don't know
Somewhere in
the
that area.
specific.
So it does greatly reduce the amount of salt that's directly applied because it's mixed with water.
Right. It's diluted.
And we're using that more frequently. I think.
Yeah, and it's a pre-treatment.
Yeah. We're doing our part to reduce the amount of salt contaminants that actually. What is the contaminant? Chlorine, is it?
Well, it's chloride.
Chloride.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the deal with, yes, question.
I was just gonna add to that, we kind of started doing that pre-treatment. A year ago, we got a new public works guy, and as soon as he got there, he got a truck and everything built up. We don't have the mixing capacity ourselves, but they go to the garage. I think they buy the solution for like 5 cents a gallon. Which is cheaper than the water in Lee County is. I think they should just put it in water.
Whole another agenda.
But I have watched closely, and it's, a few people still grumble, say it don't work. Well, guess what? After we get 2-3 inches of snow, by the time, before they can plow it, a lot of it is already melted and gone away. And I think it's very effective, and it's way better than them chunks of salt that sit there for a month after the snowstorm's gone away.
Yes,
And I've heard about beet juice.
beet juice, yeah.
Is that something that's being utilized here, and how effective is it?
It was tested,
It was tested. I did not know that.
but I think that's up to the highway commissioner. But I think conclusion was that it was not as effective in this part of the country as other parts.
I didn't realize they had tested it. But I've heard it, yeah. Any other items? Okay. And then we get into storm sewer map, and the final evaluation where we have budget estimates. So we have to include basic expenditures. The first 2 items for public education, outreach, and public involvement, that essentially represents our membership with NUSC, because they do provide a lot of that, and we pay NUSC every year a fee to do that piece for us. The illicit discharge and detection, we've got a line item there of about, $4,000 to $4,500, and that essentially represents my time of going out and monitoring and testing lab test kits. I was just talking with Chad about it. The cost of those kits has gone up immensely, which I was surprising, and we'll have to be resupplying our test kits with more reagents. So that is where that comes in. Probably the biggest expense is in construction site pollution control. You see a $65,000 number there, and that is primarily our staff at planning and zoning. That's salary for the erosion control inspector. Similarly, post-construction stormwater management, that is payment for our contractor, R.A. Smith, to conduct those services, those inspections. So there's a contract with them. Pollution prevention essentially covers, again, staff working to assemble their inspection reports that are part of this annual report. So I am going to summarize this, and then I can briefly introduce the next item, I guess, unless there's other questions. So if we go to the last part, near the end of the report where it says status of TMDL implementation. And that is where we basically are checking a box as to whether we are in compliance, we have a plan in place, which we do. One of the elements of the TMDL, which is total maximum daily load, that's an EPA number that tells us how much we can pollute in a watershed, okay? And what we are doing now and what the next item is, Mr. Chairman, do you want me to wait on that or speak briefly to it?
Let's wait.
Okay,
We'll get that second.
okay. So we have a plan in place that is addressing how we are trying to meet the TMDL reduction requirements, which are now at 83% total reduction for phosphorus and suspended solids, which is a huge number. And many of these plans are looking out 40 and 50 years in order to get to that.
Our current reduction is 40%.
Yes, current reduction is 40.
So you see the.
So that's all I have on this. I will make those edits that I had mentioned. I'm in the final steps of putting this together. I've gotten feedback from the other departments. They've reviewed it. They've given me their comments. So my plan, the deadline for submittal is March 31st. I plan on having this done probably next week and get it submitted and go from there.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions for Andy? Any concerns with the permit? Okay, if not, thank you, Andy. And,
Thank you.
I assume the county will proceed with submitting the permit as you know.
Yep.
Julie, any questions? Bruce?
No, good
Okay.
report.
All right, thank you. That was agenda item B. We will now move to C, review and approve the resolution. And this is an approval to request authority to apply for and accept the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Runoff Management Grant. Andy, if you would tie this in with your previous.
You bet. So as part of the TMDL requirements, understanding that we need to do more to come into compliance. Mr. Chairman, you had mentioned the grant, which we are seeking approval for. The actual grant that we would like to apply for is called the Urban Non-Point Source and Stormwater Management Program Planning Grant. Okay, that's what we're applying for. We applied for and won the same grant in 2017. And the purpose of the grant was to update our stormwater model. And in order to do that, we hire an engineering firm to complete the model. And I didn't, yes, I did.
When we use the word model, we're talking about a software program.
Yeah, it's a software program. And what they do is they input our storm sewer system and waterfall data, rain data, all of these other elements that, compose stormwater. And then they calculate what they predict any removal rates are. They have a no controls, which would be what would happen if we don't have any ponds, we don't have any detention, we just let stuff go. And then they run it based on, okay, this is existing conditions. These are what practices we have in place. And then we get an output of where we currently are. This was done in 2017, okay? And we were actually in pretty good shape. At the time that this was done, there was not a TMDL drafted for the Upper Fox and Wolf yet. It was just being developed, okay? Since that time in 2020, the EPA, the DNR, they haven't approved TMDL for the Upper Fox and Wolf, which is most of Winnebago County. And so now, based on that TMDL, we want to update this model because we have that information. And we've done more work in those 5 odd years. We've done more practices. Good example are the stormwater ponds right out here at Sunnyview. So my hope is that with some of the work that we've done, we will improve on numbers that we saw here. But that also means that we will have to relook at, we'll find out where we are, with these controls and how much more work we have to do going forward to get as close as we can to that. And in order to come up with that plan, we look at our capital improvements plan for the next 5 years. We see what projects are coming up, where we can include good stormwater practices and have a discussion there. So part of the process is we need to get a resolution from the county board, and that would allow us to apply and use these funds. And Chad was looking forward, pretty forward thinking, and instead of just drafting a resolution that was very specific to this grant, he said, well, let's make it a little more broad. And we called it a runoff grant, right? So now it gives us a little bit more flexibility to apply for other grants, and we won't have to go down the same path and jump through the same hoops. So does that sound about right, Chad?
Yeah, we were working with Ethan to try and make it more broad for all DNR grants, but weren't able to get that part approved. So it's still gonna be fairly specific to this.
Okay.
I think once we have to do this again, this resolution might be okay at that point. to apply for a similar.
Okay.
It's my understanding.
Okay. That's, I have one other item, unless there's other questions regarding to the application.
So just for the committee's awareness, this would advance through committee if this were approved, and then it would have to go to P&F committee in April. They would also have to approve it, and then county board in April as well. So we're a little past the deadline for this, but DNR talked to DNR and got their approval that we can submit this, it's, 2 days after the deadline, but we're okay as long as it gets passed in county board.
And the grant is for how much?
Good question. Yeah, the grant is $25,000. And we have a quote from our engineering firm of just under that, and it's a 50% share. So we would, it'd be about 12.5 of county money, and then the state grant would be the other 50%.
And we have that in the budget, or we have to do an amendment for that?
So everything here, we get reimbursed from the highway department. The administrative part is through our department, but then highway department will cover that.
They covered 12.5. Okay, this, if there are, thank you very much, sir. Well done. Is there a motion to approve?
So,
Motion.
So a motion, or second? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I hear no opposition, the motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you very much. I do, Mr. Chairman, I have that one letter of support, which we briefly discussed. Could I
Go ahead.
share that? Okay. As part of this is a competitive grant. Basically, we have to, submit a lot of information and it gets scored. One of the elements to get some points, if you will, is a letter of support from a citizen committee or body or even a private citizen. And I would like to present a draft letter that would be from the LCC committee to the DNR in support of application of the grant. I'd like to pass this around for your consideration. If you meet your approval, take one and pass it along. Then I would like to submit that as part of the packet.
This is not on the agenda, so I believe it's primarily the administrative function that's being provided as a courtesy to the committee for your review and comments.
Maybe you could read the letter out loud for those.
Oh,
who can't see
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm sorry, Julie. Yeah, could I have a copy and I'll read that? And here's the picture of the boat. Can you see it?
No, this
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, if you look up wake boat, you'll see it. So, all right, so this is from the Land Conservation Committee, Winnebago County, to the Bureau of Watershed Management, the Wisconsin DNR. Dear Bureau of Watershed Management, as members of the Land and Water Conservation Committee of Winnebago County, we are writing to express our full support for the proposed application for a state of Wisconsin DNR stormwater planning grant to update the stormwater model of our county. We recognize the importance of managing stormwater runoff, excuse me, particularly in an area like ours that is susceptible to frequent rainfall and flooding. A comprehensive stormwater model will enable us to better understand and predict the impact of stormwater on our environment, infrastructure, and public safety. With this updated information, we can work towards developing more effective and sustainable stormwater management practices and policies in maintaining compliance with MS4 permit and TMDL requirements. We appreciate the diligent efforts that the MS4 permit team of Winnebago County has taken to prioritize the county's stormwater needs and seek funding opportunities to address them. We believe that securing a grant for the stormwater model update would be a wise investment in our community's future. We urge the MS4 team to move forward with the grant application process and to continue to engage and inform residents on the importance of stormwater management. We support their efforts to enhance the health and safety of our community through responsible and sustainable stormwater management practices. Sincerely, and then I would request Chairman Fari's signature on the letter.
Are there any concerns by the committee?
For what it's worth, I approve.
Actually, I have decided that when you approve the application for the grant, this letter was part of that approval process, because I don't have it as a separate agenda item. So if we're okay with that, there's no concern, we'll proceed with that. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
What do we got next? Review the Land Water Conservation Department project list. You should have a copy of that. Shall we go through that with you a little bit?
All right, I'll walk through this. We have 5 new projects for this month. The first one, the draft site, that's a well abandonment. The Cargus one, that's a site that's experiencing erosion, some bad ice shelves on Winnebago. We'll be looking to do some shoreline riprap onshore for that site to protect that shoreline. James Lidkey, he is looking to do a couple waterways on his site. Jim also is the one that's kind of spearheading the potential producer-led group that we may get up and running. It's still in the early stages, but if that continues to advance, I'll bring it to the committee to keep you all informed on where that's advancing. But part of that process and talking with him, he has a couple waterways that have some pretty good erosion, so we're going to design those for him this year probably. Molstad, that's another shoreline protection site that some erosion that we potentially may be doing. We need to run some calculations on that to see if it meets eligibility. And the same for Chris Stricker. That's on a tributary coming in on Lake Udamore. He has some erosion there. It's borderline eligible, so we have to run the numbers, and he may just get put into the pool to prioritize throughout the year to see if we have funding. It's one of those that are right on the borderline for eligibility if we want to fund it or not. So that is what we have for new projects for March.
Are there any questions in regard to the projects? Julie, Bruce?
Nope, looks good.
Okay, any questions from the committee here? Hearing none, next thing on the agenda is a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, the motion carries, and thank you for attending.
You all have a good day. Bye.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Aye.
You guys.
Chairman, I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
If possible.